Oh boy, this is going to be a tough chapter to review. Tough nut to crack. A tough biscuit to swallow, if you know what I mean. No. So obviously I'm late because when the chapter comes out on Wednesdays, usually Wednesday mornings I'm busy. And I actually think that in this case it was a good thing because I had more time to think about it. And so I was driving and I was thinking about the chapter, which is probably not a good thing, because I get distracted. But I was thinking about it, and the conclusion that I've come up with is that the way that I feel about this chapter, I can summarize it in one sentence, and that is everything in this chapter makes sense, perfect sense. It's rational, it's logical, there are no assholes, so everything makes sense. I just expected a little bit more. That's it. It makes sense, but I expected more. And by the way, I'm not just talking about the fight. I'll give you a perfect example, right? In this chapter, we get to explore Sanji's code as a gentleman. The whole code about not hitting women, not fighting them, not being violent, being a gentleman, all that stuff is explored. And the explanation is given to us, and that is the fact that Zeph brought up Sanji to be that way. He taught him to be a gentleman, to never hit a woman, even though he himself is abusing the shit out of Sanji. I mean, just physical abuse all over the place. Corporal punishment. So I thought that was kind of funny. But, child abuse is not funny, but the situation depicted in the manga was kind of comical. Now, the thing, going back to what I said about I expected more, I had always been under the impression that because Sanji held that belief so firmly, I had always thought that that was something that Sanji had come up with by himself. I thought that that was something that he decided to adopt that code out of an experience that he had. Not something that was taught to him, not something that somebody else told him. I always thought it was something, this sounds like it's something deep and personal. And it was more of a lesson, a code that he adopted from somebody else. Again, it makes perfect sense, but I always thought there'd be more depth to it. Which, unfortunately, I have to say this, I have to be honest, given what we had in this chapter in terms of Sanji's backstory, and what we got in the previous two chapters, right? The fact that we didn't really learn, we didn't get enough closure when it comes to Sanji's mom, and there's a couple of questions there, and the fact that Reiju basically did copy paste of Saul's speech to Robin. One day, Robin, I guarantee the sea is a vast place. You'll find people that care about you, people that will treat you right, and they can be your nakama. Personally, I kind of get the feeling that Oda had something bigger planned for Sanji's backstory, but that he ended up being rushed by the upper heads, the editors, because I can totally see the editors telling Oda, wait, this is a Sanji flashback. It's a backstory, but we already have a backstory for Sanji. And people are annoyed by flashbacks. So you gotta, whatever you're gonna do it in 2 chapters or less. That's the feeling that I get. I feel like I'm getting some Kubo vibes. I really am. I'm getting some Kubo vibes from the whole Sanji backstory thing. Anyway, moving on. Reiju introduces this new Germa 66 technology in the form of a mask that just covers up the swelling, Sanji's face, which I guess means that underneath, he still hasn't healed. It's just for appearance purposes, right? So I'm pretty sure that's gonna serve a function. Maybe there's something else that the mask does that Reiju didn't want to say. Unfortunately, she does tell him in this chapter, this is as far as I'm going to help you. So if that's true, -1 point for Reiju. So the Vinsmokes cross from Germa into Whole Cake Island using this bridge and riding this royal carriage. It just looks majestic AF. Alright, very royal-like. It's a pretty swaggy shot of the brothers there riding the carriage. Although, my question is, wait, did Reiju stay home? We don't get to see all of them. It's just Judge and 3 brothers in the back. So I'm okay, I guess we'll find out eventually. We also find out that Chopper and Carrot have been running around, more like running away from Madame Brûlée, in the mirror world. And so, have they been running away from her for 11 hours? Or is it just because Carrot does say, hey, Chopper, or Bropper, or, Whataburger, or Whopper, I can't run anymore. She tells him, I can't do this anymore. So it sounds like they've been running away from her for a while. But remember, Chopper does have a plan. So I'm kind of getting the feeling that maybe they're running, but they're also leading her to a specific place that'll be her downfall. So it could be the case that Chopper is maybe overacting it a little bit. Maybe he's just, just acting like he's super scared. Because worst case scenario, he could go like Monster Point and at least break the ball in chains, right? So that they can run more freely. But he hasn't done that, so I kind of get the feeling that he knows exactly what he's doing. There would be no purpose in Oda having him mention the fact that, hey, Carrot, I think I can come up with a plan. Yeah, so I think he knows exactly what he's doing. That being said, we go into the Luffy versus Cracker fight. Oh, boy! So for starters, I just want to focus on Nami. And the fact that she says something pretty important, but the statement is not given the importance that it deserves, at least not visually. And you probably already know what I'm talking about. Up until this point, every single Straw Hat, with the exception of Frankie and Robin, have said that Luffy is going to be the man to become Pirate King. And they do it in a very defiant way, usually when they're up against an opponent. However, usually when the Straw Hats say it, they get one full panel, almost an entire row for themselves to say it, because it's a pretty heavy statement. And in Nami's case, she's just kind of sandwiched in between those panels. Like, she's in the middle of the row, so there's not a lot of like visual importance given to that moment. So I thought that was a little bit weird. Before that, Cracker said something that just made all types of alarms go off in my head. He said, all right, this fight has been dragging on for way too long. This ends now. Typical shonen trope. Once an antagonist or a villain says stupid shit like this, you can pretty much smell the KO coming. So, that's when he said that, I was like, oh no, oh no. And then it is revealed that the reason why Luffy has been able to munch on these biscuits is because Nami has been using rain on them to make them softer. And so the question then becomes, this is the thing about this fight, right? It really left us with more questions than answers, really, because you then think about, okay, well, what would have happened if Nami hadn't been there to help Luffy? What would have happened if Nami didn't have the Vivre card, to use the homies to her advantage? What would have happened if Cracker's ability were different, right? If Luffy could Luffy just eat these crackers without Nami's help? And if so, okay, it took him 11 hours. 11 hours. He reveals Tank Man, which that's one of the things that I like about this chapter, that it confirms the fact that Luffy has other forms of Gear 4. We have Bound Man, Tank Man. The problem is, Tank Man is basically the equivalent of him using Gum Gum Balloon, Gomu Gomu no Fuzen, alright, but in Gear 4th. So I thought the form was going to be something new and creative. It's basically the balloon, but with the Gear 4 tattoos. That's pretty much it. Another thing, though, is like, okay, did it really take Luffy 11 hours to set up this mode? Because if yes, then that's a problem. Like, straight up. Any way you slice it, that's a problem. But it's important to look at both sides, all right? So let's do that. So first, my first question is, what was Cracker doing offensively, in terms of attacking Luffy during those 11 hours? Because we saw him. We know that he can cut through Gear 4, no problem, all right? Why didn't he? I don't know. What was he doing in that? He couldn't get to him. Also, because I know people are going to argue this. They're going to say, so if Nami hadn't been there, Luffy would have probably lost. Well, if that's the case, you can also argue. The other side is, well, wait a minute. If Cracker knew that Nami was such a big problem, in defeating his biscuits, why didn't Cracker deal with Nami first and then deal with Luffy? You see what I'm saying? And then you can say, well, it's because Nami had the protection of the homies. But then, are you implying that Cracker wouldn't be able to take the homies? Like, that, see, it's just like a bunch of scenarios. A bunch of what if. Also, the problem with Cracker being taken down, and I'm not too sure that he is, like, every time I see somebody fly away, I always think about Team Rocket. They're going to come back eventually. So I don't know. At this point, the truth is, I don't know if he's, like, gone for good. But all right? The problem with a commander being defeated this way is that, I'm sorry, it makes the rest of the supernova that have been in Whole Cake Island, that makes them look so bad, it's not even funny. I mean, with the exception of Rouge, who took down one of the commanders beforehand, all right, so he's still cool. But then, like, what does it say about Big Mom's judgment, right? Because she was the one who specifically hand-selected Cracker to go and meet up with Luffy because she knew that Luffy had been the one to defeat Dofi, okay? So what's going on there? It's like the guy that you picked, Moms, is blasting off again because of a balloon, all right? Now, so another thing is, like, and this is super important that you guys realize this. Hopefully you guys did. I know you guys are smart. Cracker got KO'd, if he got KO'd at all. The reason why he started bleeding and his eyes were white and shit wasn't because of Luffy's attack or, like, Luffy's, like, you know, impact of sending him away. It's because he crashed into his own biscuits. Cracker got defeated by his own ability. That's why Luffy told Nami, yo, I need you to stop with that rain, man. Stop with that rain, because I need those biscuits for him to crash into them. Because those biscuits are hard as fuck. The fight was won, but was it really won? Because it's like, okay, the situation was very favorable for Luffy. So in that regard, I guess it's just a matter of deciding, okay, shoot, who does the win, like, who takes the win, the situation or Luffy? All right? Because at the end of the day, yeah, like, for example, in wrestling, right, you always try and use the opponent's weight against them. In this case, Luffy used Cracker's ability against them. That's a pretty, you know, solid move / argument. But then you had Nami, you had the homies, you had the 10-hour thing where Luffy was coming back in and out. So, you know, at least we get to move on. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. The cover page I thought was okay. Reminds me of, like, that Pokemon, what is it? Wishcash? Wishcash. Yeah. Anyway, thanks. Like the video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Comment down below with your thoughts. I appreciate you. Bye.